Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Juicebox Podcast. My guest today has had diabetes type 1 for 3 years. She's using Rybelsus, which is a GLP in a pill, and she talks a lot about food and her diagnosis in this episode. Oh, and that they thought she didn't. Oh, geez, that's interesting. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my own notes. Yeah, they didn't think she was going to live at diagnosis, and they actually sent her family out into the community to look for medication. This is a story that's really different, interesting. You should check it out. Please don't forget that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. Don't forget to save 40% off of your entire order at CozyEarth.com. All you have to do is use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. That's JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% at CozyEarth.com. When you place your first order for AG1 with my link, you'll get 5 free travel packs and a free year's supply of vitamin D. Drink AG1.com/juicebox. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the continuous glucose monitor that my daughter wears, the Dexcom G7. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Get started today using this link, and you'll not only be doing something great for yourself, you'll be supporting the Juicebox Podcast. US Med is sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast, and we've been getting our diabetes supplies from US Med for years. You can as well. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. Use the link or the number, get your free benefits check, and get started today with US Med. This show is sponsored today by the glucagon that my daughter carries, Gvoke HypoPen. Find out more at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox.
Hi, my name is Akshara. I am 29 years old and I've been diagnosed with type 1 for the last 3 years. So very recently diagnosed. I'm learning new things every day. And I just wanted to come on and say hi and wanted to share my story.
Oh, I'm great. I'm excited to have you. Thank you. So three years with diabetes. How old are you?
I'm 29.
29. And you just said I'm still learning. That's interesting. So has it been a consistent learning process over 3 years, or have you suddenly found different information and you're absorbing it now?
No, I think it's been consistent learning through these 3 years. Also because when I got diagnosed, I think there were a lot of things that was happening at that time in my life, just, when I got diagnosed. And I think it's just been the last year that I've really focused on, my diabetes, and I've come to accept the fact that I live with it. I think the first 2 years, there was a lot of denial and, so I've been learning how to control, my sugar levels and, just deal with it more consistently in the last year.
What does denial look like?
Just not accepting the fact that I have diabetes, like just thinking that's just something that's momentary or it's just for a short period of time and maybe it'll go away, and yeah.
So while you're in that feeling, you're not putting your full effort into it because you know what I mean? Like I understand the hopefully this will, maybe they're wrong, maybe it'll go away, like that kind of thing. I understand all that, but what happens to you while you're doing that? Are you just sort of half-heartedly taking care of it, or are you taking care of it very earnestly and then suddenly you accept the fact that it's not going away?
No, I think it's the latter. It's like I'm half-heartedly taking care of it. It's not that I would ignore my numbers. I would not take the insulin, but it's more. I would just do the basic of what is required, right? If I maybe I'll just take 5-6 units because I know that's the minimum that I would need, to get through a meal or whatever. And I know that I have to take my basal at a certain time of day. And I would do that. But I was not correcting. I was not, trying to understand why certain foods impacted my sugar levels the way it did. So I was just trying to, just keep my head up the water. That's it.
but you weren't learning
Yeah.
or digging deeper or anything like that.
No, nothing.
How did you get past the idea that hopefully this will just go away? Was there just time that did it? Was it a conversation you had, a moment?
It was time, definitely. And so I got diagnosed during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So it was I'm from India. So we had a second wave of COVID during 2021.
I remember.
Where it was like things were really intense. And, there was the scarcity of beds in hospitals. And, it was a really difficult time getting admitted. And that's when I got diagnosed. I was I got COVID and then in DKA, and that's how I came to this new chapter of my life. Yeah. So the first 2 years, I was dealing with a lot of after effects of COVID, still trying to come back to my strong, like my old self, like gaining strength, and I had lost my voice, so I was doing vocal cord therapy and all of that. A lot of other stuff was happening.
Yeah. Did you have or do you have long COVID symptoms?
I don't have any COVID symptoms now,
right?
But I think from the year that I was diagnosed, I think for a year from then, I had a lot of COVID symptoms. Mm-hmm. So so I think I think after that, like once you get back to routine and get back to your life and start doing everyday things, and I had like a new doctor, like an endocrinologist, and then that's when I really learned what this means and why I need to take care of it. And I was, paying more attention. So I think it was time that kind of did it. And that's how I came to terms with the fact that, it's more real and it's not going to go away.
Not going to go away. Are you in a big city in India or where are you?
Yes, I am in a big city in India. Yeah.
What was that intake like through the hospital? Did they give you any technology? Is the technology wildly different there than it is here? That kind of stuff. If you take insulin or sulfonylureas, you are at risk for your blood sugar going too low. You need a safety net when it matters most. Be ready with Gvoke HypoPen. My daughter carries Gvoke HypoPen everywhere she goes because it's a ready-to-use rescue pen for treating very low blood sugar in people with diabetes ages 2 and above that I trust. Low blood sugar emergencies can happen unexpectedly, and they demand quick action. Luckily, Gvoke HypoPen can be administered in 2 simple steps, even by yourself in certain situations. Show those around you where you store Gvoke HypoPen and how to use it. They need to know how to use Gvoke HypoPen before an emergency situation happens. Learn more about why Gvoke HypoPen is in Arden's Diabetes Toolkit at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Gvoke shouldn't be used if you have a tumor in the gland on the top of your kidneys called a pheochromocytoma, or if you have a tumor in your pancreas called an insulinoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk for safety information. Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by Dexcom, and I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about the continuous glucose monitor that my daughter wears, the Dexcom G7. The Dexcom G7 is small. It is accurate, and it is easy to use and wear. Arden has been wearing a Dexcom G7 since almost day one of when they came out, and she's having a fantastic experience with it. We love the G6, but man, is the G7 small. The profile, so much closer to your body. The weight, you can't really feel it. And that's coming from me, and I've worn one. I've worn a G6, I've worn a G7. I found both of the experiences to be lovely, but my gosh, is that G7 tiny. And the accuracy has been fantastic. Arden's A1Cs are right where we expect them to be, and we actually use the Dexcom Clarity app to keep track of those things. That app is built right in to Arden's Dexcom G7 app on her iPhone. Oh, did you not know about that? You can use an iPhone or an Android device to see your Dexcom data. If you have a compatible phone, your Dexcom goes right to the Dexcom app. You don't have to carry the receiver. But if you don't want to use the phone, that's fine. Use the Dexcom receiver. It's up to you. Choice is yours with Dexcom. Dexcom.com/juicebox.
I don't remember much from when I was actually diagnosed. Like I don't have any memory of those few days. Mm-hmm. But I was on MDI. They gave me like a sliding scale. Like I need to take some 8 units during breakfast and some 6 units during dinner. And I need to take some 12 units, which was my basal. So that's what I was doing for, I think, a year. And then some friend of mine told me to visit this other doctor who was like really popular in the city that I live in. And they have like this really big diabetes hospital. And then so when I went there, this was just last year. So when I went there, that's when, I was taught a carb counting. I was taught what an insulin to carb ratio is. I was given a CGM. And I think since the last about 8-9 months, I've been on a pump as well.
Okay. Which pump?
I use the Ipsomed pump.
Ipsomed. Okay.
Yeah.
So right now, Ipsomed pump.
Yeah.
CGM?
Freestyle Libre.
Libre
1. That's what you get here in India.
They're all, there's no other one available right now?
No.
Does that come through a healthcare system?
No, you buy it with cash.
Cash. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you mind telling me what it costs and how that translates to American money?
So it costs around 5,000 rupees, which is 72, which is about $70 for one.
For one?
For one sensor, which would last you 14 days.
What is that like based on your income? Is that a heavy lift for you?
Yeah. So if you do multiplied by 2, right? Like you would assume in a month I would need about 2 sensors. So that's like 10,000 rupees, which is a good portion of money for someone who earns, who lives in a middle class lifestyle or who has a 9-to-5 job. That's a good chunk of money.
Hold that amount up to me against like rent or food or something like that. Like what?
Okay. So in the city that I live, which is like a tier 2 city or almost a tier 1 city, it doesn't matter. So it would be 1/3 of the rent that I pay in a month. And it would be like almost a month's worth groceries. And it would be like a month's worth of gas or like in India, we say petrol, right? So it'll be a month's worth of petrol.
1 Libre sensor?
2 Libre sensors.
2 is the equivalent to a month's worth of gas. Grocery. Or a third of your rent.
Yep.
Wow.
That's right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's like, this is crazy in America, but you could pay $2,000 for an apartment in America, no problem, in some places.
Yeah.
And that's like saying that 2 Libre sensors is like $800. Yeah, that's nuts. Okay. Wow. All right. But you're doing it because why? Because you like not having money or because you find it that necessary?
No, obviously I like having money.
Mm-hmm.
Inspires me to work harder so that I have more money so that I can afford the diabetes technology. Right. And of course, the technology is important. And I think, I think I'm a lazy person. I wouldn't do too many, finger sticks if I'm given the choice. So I think having the CGM makes it easier. You
think not wanting to do finger sticks is lazy? I don't know. I don't think that's lazy. I think that might be smart, but this is crazy. So, are you married?
Yes, I am.
You are. Okay. And do you have kids?
No.
Are you planning on kids? No? Okay. How about in your family? Is there any other type 1 in your family?
No, there's no type 1 in my family, but there are a couple of aunts who have hypothyroidism. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's no one else that I know of who has any other autoimmune like celiac or type 1 or anything else. Yeah.
Getting away from autoimmune for a second, do you have much type 2 in your family?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are, like some of my grandparents. India, a lot of people in India have type 2 diabetes just because of our eating habits and our lifestyle and things like that. So not immediate family members, but extended family members do have type 2 diabetes. Yeah.
And that brings up a good question. Like, well, first of all, did you adjust your eating? And if you didn't, would you even be able to living in India to get away from stuff like that?
Definitely, yes, you can adjust your eating. You do get a lot of variety of foods, which are not very carb heavy. It's just that the most affordable options tend to be white rice and, some vegetables which are more heavy in carbs than other nutrients. But it's definitely doable.
Okay.
I go through phases where I'm suddenly like, okay, I'm going to do low carb and I'm not going to eat any carb. And I do that for a couple of months. And after some time, I just totally give up. And I'm like, okay, I just want to eat my traditional food, which is very carb heavy. I would like to believe that I have a very balanced way when it comes to food. I think it tends to lean a little more on the carb heavy side.
So let me ask you this. Are you a vegetarian?
Yes, I am a vegetarian.
Okay. And so that makes it harder, right? Because all the meat, that would have very low or no carbs in it isn't available to you. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you have to go maybe more towards vegetables if you're going to do that. I see.
Yeah.
Tell people, what does a classic kind of week of Indian eating look like in a home? Like you know what I mean? Like what are some staple foods?
Sure. So a lot of our foods are very lentil based. So we have something called dal, which is like a lentil curry, basically. So so a lot of your food types were like, so a lot of it is either like a roti or a chapati, which is like kind of a bread that's made with whole wheat.
Okay.
So you have that with some, some curry, which would either be like a lentil-based curry, or it would be some vegetable-based curry, or you would have that curry with rice, with white rice primarily. So I am traditionally from the southern part of India where rice is more prominent.
Mm-hmm.
White rice is more prominent. And we have that with different kind of lentil-based curries and with one or two vegetables.
Right.
So it would be like a permutation combination where your white rice or your whole wheat chapatis or rotis or, naan bread, as they say, those kind of things with different curries and different sabzis.
I was at a friend's house recently, kind of like we just dropped in, and she's like, we have, I don't know what it was called, but she's like, here, you want some food? And it's like kind of like, it felt like a flour pocket or dough, and inside of it was like rice and peas and some other stuff, and I think it was fried maybe, and
was it like a samosa? Did she say samosa?
I don't remember what she said it was. I remember like eating it and thinking like, wow, this is a lot of carbs, and like just a thing that was just kind of sitting around to snack on or grab, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Did you go during tea time, during the afternoon time?
No, it was in the evening. We were stopping by my son could meet with her husband a little bit about something.
Okay.
Yeah, she's like, oh, look what we have. And I was like, oh, great. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what this is.
So a lot of our snack time foods are all fried foods, which is more easily accessible. So you like the one that you said, it's usually, I think you're referring to a samosa, which has like potatoes and peas inside, like a pastry kind of a filling, like an outer shell that's like deep fried.
Yes.
So that's like a very common snack time, tea time kind of a food that you have with chai.
How do you bolus for that?
Your guess is as good as mine. Yeah.
What have you been able to accomplish with your outcomes and the food choices that you have? Like, where's your A1C at, and what are your goals?
My A1C is definitely not the best. The most recent one that I had was a 7.2, and that's the lowest A1C that I've had in the last 3 years that I've been diagnosed.
Okay.
So yeah, I think I'm really moving towards, I think for this year, my goal is to be in the low sixes, and then I would want to be closer to the fives as time goes on. But yeah, so I try to eat what is more easily, like it's something that I can make more easily. So that, it's if it's too complicated, I'm not going to make it, and then I'm not going to eat it. So I try to balance that. And I've also started, I've recently started taking Ribelsis, which is like a pill form of GLP medication.
Yeah.
So that has helped a lot in terms of my insulin sensitivity and just the amount of insulin that I'm using on a daily basis. It's just been a month since I've been on that medication, but that's helped a lot. Yeah. So
can you tell me about that a little bit? Is that it's a pill, right? Is it daily?
Yeah, it's a pill. Yeah. It's something that you take every day.
Okay.
In the first thing in the morning. And you're not supposed to eat or drink anything at least for half an hour after you've taken the pill. and then you go on about your day as usual.
Are you on a 7 or a 14 milligram pill?
So I'm currently on a 7 milligram pill. I started off with 3 mg, but now I'm on 7 mg. But from next week, I will move to 14 mg.
They'll move you up. Gastro stomach, any issues from it? What did you get from it?
Yeah, I think the first few weeks was a little difficult. I mean, I've heard some of your stories where you said that you feel the foot sits in your...
Feels like it's up here in your chest. Yeah.
So, I mean, I did have those sensations in the beginning, but I think otherwise it's been okay. There was just one time where I had like instant noodles and I couldn't keep it in. I threw up, and I've not touched instant noodles since then. Like, it haunts me now to even think about it.
Just like those like pre-made noodles, you put hot water in them and that you couldn't handle. But had you not thrown up, you think you could do it now that you've been on it longer?
I don't want to take the
You
risk. And also, I think more importantly, I don't crave for that kind of food. Like, I don't feel like eating it, I mean, I could take maybe 2 bites and I'm done. Like, I don't want to eat more of that.
So it's really working. It's working for you then. Yeah.
Yes. I'm also so sorry, I just wanted to say one thing.
Yeah.
I'm also somebody who's always thinking about food. Like, I'd wake up in the morning, think what's for breakfast. And, when I'm eating breakfast, I would think, what do I have for lunch? Like, that's how my brain works. And I can tell you, I've not thought about food in the last 1 month at all. I've gone days having just one meal and I'm totally okay.
Have you lost weight?
I've not lost weight. Maybe like 1 kg.
Okay.
Here and there. But it's helped a lot with just how much my insulin needs have gone down.
Sure.
It's gone, by 25-30%. Like, my basal has gone down like crazy. And even my ISF, my sensitivity has improved quite a bit too. So in that way, it's really helped.
That's excellent. Good for you. I'm sure over time do you need it or want it to impact your weight, or maybe you don't? I used to hate ordering my daughter's diabetes supplies. I never had a good experience and it was frustrating. But it hasn't been that way for a while. Actually, for about 3 years now, because that's how long we've been using US Med. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. US Med is the #1 distributor for Freestyle Libre systems nationwide. They are the #1 specialty distributor for Omnipod DASH, the #1 fastest growing tandem distributor nationwide, the #1 rated distributor in Dexcom customer satisfaction surveys. They have served over 1 million people with diabetes since 1996, and they always provide 90 days worth of supplies and fast and free shipping. US Med carries everything from insulin pumps and diabetes testing supplies to the latest CGMs like the Libre 3 and Dexcom G7. They accept Medicare nationwide and over 800 private insurers. Find out why US Med has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau at usmed.com/juicebox, or just call them at 888-721-1514. Get started right now, and you'll be getting your supplies the same way we do.
I do. I would like to. I initially read a lot about how it does, affect weight. I was earlier wanting to take it only for weight. I didn't even care about all the side effects it would have, like good side effects on,
for diabetes.
The insulin, on the insulin aspect. But I'm so glad, like, now I don't care about the weight as long as, my insulin is affecting much better and all of that stuff.
Has it impacted your spikes at meals?
Yeah.
It has, right? Yeah.
It has. Earlier it used to be like a mountain, like up, down, but
right.
Now it's more gradual. And it was already gradual, listening to you guys in your podcast, and thank you so much for that. But I think it's much more smoother. The curve is more smoother now that I take GLP medication.
Right before we started recording, I actually sat in on Arden's doctor's appointment. Arden just got back from college, so she had a doctor's appointment today that was just virtual. And we went over her GLP, her insulin, all of her stuff, obviously. We're going to try to cut her GLP dose back because she is having trouble being hungry. And she's like, she's lost too much weight at this point. So she's, we're like, well, we want to get this GLP down to where it will help her with her diabetes, help with the PCOS stuff, but not keep her from eating. You know what I mean? So like, that's the spot she's in right now. The doctor asked her to like, she's like, oh, let's try to put like 7 pounds on, kind of as healthy as possible, like put 7 pounds on. So that's what we're working on right now. What it's done to her blood sugar control is insane, So like, I mean, I actually showed this to the doctor, but I have it here. I'll show it to you too. Now this is, obviously injected Mounjaro. This is her last 24 hours. And that's a 70 to 120 blood sugar. Those 2 excursions up went to 160 and that was it. It's just crazy. I mean, for people who can't see, it's super stable for, I'd say 20 of the 24 hours between 80 and 100. And, pops up to 120 once or twice, pops to 160 once or twice. It probably looks better than most people's do, Yeah, the GLPs are crazy, but I'm excited that the pill's working for you. Is that the way they go there in India with the Rybelsus, or do you see people injecting GLPs as well?
There are people who are injecting who take Ozempic. I think Ozempic is available in India, but it's more type 2 medication. And my doctor just wouldn't give it to me. He said, I don't want to prescribe it for you. So I take the pill every day.
If he did, I don't know how your like coverage works. If he did prescribe it for you, would it be paid for?
So none of this is covered by anything. I'm paying out of cash, out of my pocket for all of this. So my GLP so the GLP medication is really expensive too.
The Rybelsus is.
Yeah, the Rybelsus. Yeah. Okay. So the pill, the pill that I take, so it's once. So you need to take 30 pills, right, for a month. So it costs the same as much as the sensors do. So it's like 10,000 rupees a month is what the pill also costs.
Wow.
For a month. It's very expensive.
Well, no wonder you don't want to have kids. You already have one. Your diabetes is a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Your diabetes might need to go to college one day and you're going to have to save up.
I swear. And if I'm going to live till like, whatever, 100,
exactly.
Like, I need to have so much money in my account that I have to do this forever.
So explain to me, so there's no, like you have a job, you work?
Yeah, okay. I do. Yes.
And there's no, like here in America, you might get a job and then your job might offer you health coverage, you pay for it. But does that exist there or no?
Yeah. So insurance does exist, but it only covers hospitalization. So if you are admitted in hospital for something, you need to go through a procedure or you have some operation, blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff is covered under insurance. You don't have to pay for all of that stuff. But your treatment, so you have a disease and you're treating it by any means, that is not covered by insurance.
No matter what. Like diabetes.
It could be anything. It could be heart disease. It could be diabetes. It could be whatever. It's not covered.
That's it. I see. Wow. Yeah. Well, so then everybody growing up in India is thinking about that. Because it's going to affect everybody at some point. And with the type 2 population the way it is, which is massive, right? I'm not wrong about that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But so for type 2, they usually prescribe metformin. Like 90% of people who are diagnosed with type 2 is prescribed metformin. And metformin is really affordable. It's very easily available and it's not, that's not a very expensive medication.
They've been making it forever. It's basically free. Yeah. Here too, it's not expensive either. Okay. So in your note, you said that you'd like to talk about dealing with some depression around your diagnosis. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So, just referring back to what I said, I was diagnosed during COVID and it was so crazy. It was so intense. And I don't have any memory of it because I was, in the ICU and I was admitted for like a couple of days, maybe unconscious.
You were in DKA unconscious?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Did you almost die?
Yeah, I almost died.
Oh my God.
So I got COVID here in India when they do your COVID test. They give you like a number that is representative of how high or low your infection is in the body. Higher the number, the more severe is your infection. So I think the highest it goes is about 20 or something, and mine was like 18. So the level of COVID or whatever, the infection that I had.
Is that the viral load? Maybe is that how they talk about that? Okay.
Yeah, something like that. So that was like really high, and I remember when I got COVID, I saw the report, and I was okay. I was fine. I just had some fatigue and I was having some body pain. But apart from that, I was okay. But 2 days after that, I was just constantly throwing up. I couldn't keep a bite of food down. And like 1 week later, I wake up in the hospital in the ICU. I
Wow.
don't know what happened on those 5, 7 days. I have no.
How did your husband describe it to you later?
Yeah, I think more. So my parents also live very close by to me. At that time they did. So they were the ones who were really taking care of me. My husband also got COVID subsequently, like a couple of days after I got it. So they were like, so nobody could come visit me. They have like these crazy stories about how they make some 100 calls in a day to get a hospital, to get a bed, just so that with a bed with an oxygen cylinder, so that I needed to be on O2. So
Wow.
they did like an ICU bed basically. So they were like making so many calls and pulling random people from their contact list and trying to find some hospital bed somewhere. And I think after like couple of hours, like I think towards the end of that day where I went unconscious, I think that's when they found a hospital bed and they admitted me. And they couldn't. They used to get like a WhatsApp video call from from the doctor who was taking care of me in the ICU,
Yeah.
just to give updates about how my health was on that particular day. And they would always say things like, "Oh, her organs are failing," or we're not able to revive her, or it's going to be really messy. We need, and they would ask for a very specific type of medication, which was a treatment for COVID at that point in time. At least here in India, it was called Italizumab or something like that, some steroid medication, I think.
Wow.
So, yeah, so they would ask for that. And my parents were, trying to source that medication again from so many different, like they'd put up posts on Twitter, on Facebook, and, everywhere else trying to find that vial of medication.
How common is that? So you're in a hospital dying and your parents
Yeah.
are on social media trying to find medication for you?
Yeah, because the hospitals couldn't store it. There was such a dire shortage of that medication.
Mhm.
And, it was such a difficult time for them because they were really pulling the weight for the family and for me. So my husband was not feeling well. He was also subsequently admitted in some other hospital in another part of the city.
Right.
So it was my parents and my sister, the three of them, who were, trying to do a lot of sourcing of this medication. And the doctors told my parents that you try if you can get this medication.
And
because we are not able to get it.
Is that common in India, or was it just specific around COVID time?
No, it was just around COVID. It was just around that time because it was so intense. The second wave that we had was so crazy.
You guys got crushed the second time around. I remember from the news.
April, from April 2021 till I think October of that year, it was that's when I think the second wave was, and it was so crazy. It was really intense.
And the India population's pretty equal to China. Like you guys almost have like 1.5 billion people there, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in a much smaller area. I mean, we have maybe 330 million people.
Yeah.
And geez, that's a lot more. And so the COVID must have spread like crazy, right?
Yeah. Yes, it did. Also because after the initial wave of COVID, I think that kind of went a little mellow. And then so towards the end of 2020, a lot of places opened up, and a lot of places, started like restaurants and hotels, were open to people to come visit and stay and all of that. So I think that triggered the second wave and the spread of the second wave so crazy.
Sure.
That, it was like widespread at that time.
So now first of all, you got through it, but how long did it take them to get you conscious and get you moving again?
Yeah, so I think it took about like 5-6 days. I was in the ICU for about 5 days, and then so when it was a week of no memory, right?
Sure.
I wake up and it's a week later, and I have no recollection of where I am. How did I end up in the hospital? And there's nobody around because it was all isolated. It was a COVID ward, like only COVID patients were there in that ICU. So even doctors were wearing like those suits, right, that protected them from head to toe. And so I was like, dude, what the hell am I doing here? Like what happened?
You didn't think, I knew it, zombies, it's happening.
Yeah. I was like, am I in some rehab center somewhere?
Yeah.
Like what's happening?
I believe you're describing episode 1 of The Walking Dead, by the way.
Yeah.
So,
right. And I was really mad at my parents for like abandoning me and my husband for abandoning me. And I'm like, why am I in the hospital alone? Like, what's happening? And I was so delusional because of the amount of pain of medication I was on. I don't know what medication, but I was just like, my body was so beat.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have energy to do anything. I remember like they had to teach me how to walk after a couple of days after I woke up in the ICU. They had to like a baby teach me the baby how to walk.
It's
like
amazing.
That's how it felt. Yeah. I took like a couple of steps and
yeah. Well, you're lucky to be alive, obviously.
I know.
But then how long after that does the diabetes happen?
So I woke up and the first question, so when I met the doctor, the first time the doctor came to visit me after I became conscious, the doctor asked me, so do you have diabetes? I'm like, what? I don't have any diabetes. What are you talking about? She's like, no, you definitely have diabetes. And I'm like, no, I don't. Are you joking? Are you joking right now? I definitely don't have diabetes. And the nurses in the ICU used to come and give me insulin injections. I had no idea how much insulin they were giving me. What is the insulin that they were giving me? Were they even giving me a basal? I remembered my vision was so blurry, I couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
During the day, maybe I would wake up and my vision would be so blurred. And then they'd give me some, I think before breakfast, they would give me some insulin. So by 12 till 4, maybe I could see a little bit. My vision would be back to normal. And then again, after dinner, it would be so blurry, I couldn't see a damn thing.
Yeah, it's why I asked, like, when did the diabetes come? Because I thought, did they just wake you up and spring it on you? But they also, I realized then, they might have just thought that you had it and just went into DKA.
Yeah.
Which happens
so
to
nobody
people.
told me that I was in DKA until, I think, a month after. Like I was discharged. So this happened in April 2021. So I think sometime in May, I went to meet like that doctor who took care of me, who was like my, my primary doctor in the ICU. So she asked me to come and meet her like a month after. And that's when she's like, okay, so you're a diabetic. Now you need to be on insulin. You need to take this. You need to take whatever X amount of units at this day, at this time before breakfast and before dinner. And this you need to take in the morning after breakfast. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool, whatever. Like I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know why I was doing it.
Pissed at your parents and your husband for leaving you in the hospital.
I know.
Just all over the place.
Oh, and I also lost my voice. I couldn't speak.
Completely?
Yeah, like it was just air that would come out of my mouth.
No kidding.
I used to sound so, it was so scary. If someone would speak to me at that point in time, they were like, oh my God, what is wrong with you?
That's crazy. Did they tell you why? Were you intubated?
No, I was not intubated.
Really?
They don't know why I lost my voice.
Huh.
And so I was only worried, why is my voice gone? And when am I going to get my voice back? Like I didn't care about this diabetes. Yeah.
This guy says I have diabetes. I definitely don't have diabetes. And like,
exactly. And I was abandoned in the hospital. So please, tell me something good needs to be going
any good
right
news?
now.
What's for lunch? Yeah. My gosh. Was it a depression that hit you right away? Did it come over time? Was it like a clinical depression, or were you sad? Like, how did it feel?
Yeah. So I think I was really upset by the whole thing. I think losing my voice was something that really, I think that was like the last straw.
Pushed you over.
That pushed me over. And because I couldn't talk to anyone, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't at like the work that I do need to speak to people. I couldn't do that. So I was like, oh my God, why? So I kind of, I was thinking, why am I alive? Like, why did I make it through this? Because a lot of the doctors said that, you're lucky to be alive. I'm like, what am I lucky? What should I feel lucky about?
I can't talk. I can't walk. I have diabetes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't eat what I want now. So like, what am I lucky? Like, what should I feel lucky about?
Right.
So I remember, being like, so I don't want to say survivor's guilt, but it was like, why did I make it out? Like, I just couldn't figure it out. And I did take a couple of therapy sessions, but, in therapy, you need to speak. And I couldn't speak. So that didn't go really well for me.
You just sat there and somebody told you how to feel?
No. I mean, I would try to, get the
involved.
air out of my mouth. Yeah.
Wow. How long until your voice came back?
8-10 months.
No kidding. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I did vocal cord therapy. So there are a lot of exercises that involve you making different kind of noise and vibrations with your mouth, and so I saw a vocal cord like voice therapist. Yeah. So I had to do that for some time. And
is that, I think, like a common thing from like COVID, or have you heard has anybody given you an explanation for it?
No, nobody could explain why that happened or how did it happen. Is it common? Very, very unheard of, I think. I think it was just me, or maybe, I don't know. Sometimes they say it could be fatigue, or maybe, nobody knows, nobody knows why it happened. And nobody knows how I got it back as well.
Well, it's lucky. I mean, I guess you are lucky. Yeah. Do you feel luckier now that you've had time?
I don't know if lucky is the right word, but I do feel grateful that, that I had the support system, that I had people who took care of me and who were there for me, and, who could help me through it. And, I think it was more difficult for my family than it was for me, because I don't remember a damn thing. And, they had to live through those few days where they had these intense calls from the doctor, and the doctor was just giving them bad news. And, so I think I'm just grateful that I had those people who were taking care of me, and I made it. Maybe I'm lucky because I have them.
Yeah, for sure. But it's such a good point, honestly, though, that not that I think people would have skipped over it in your conversation, but your family is being told it's on you to go find medication. She's going to die, and there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, have you talked to your parents about that?
Yeah, I did. So this response that they were given at that time was very common. A lot of doctors were giving that response because they couldn't find that medication. Yeah. And it was so scary.
But still, forget what's going on in the world. Like on a personal side, somebody comes to you and says, hey, you don't know how to get medication, but if you could do it, it'll save her. And if you can't, well, we're not sure what's going to happen. Right. Like,
a
lot of pressure.
I mean, and they were like really stressed at that time too, and I even now my dad says that I was so glad that they didn't get COVID at that time, because I think COVID got everybody except for my mom and dad. There were the two people in my house who did not get COVID, and because of that, they were able to, do all of this running around and arranged all these all these medications, and get they were able to visit in the hospital whenever they could. A lot of that stuff. So,
no, geez, it's really crazy. So I think I've kind of saved this last bit of our conversation because you just in your notes said like existential questions, and I want to talk through that. That's really interesting. Yeah. But first, I have to ask you. I mean, you're sitting. Do you want to share your location or no? You're sitting somewhere in southern India, and I'm in New Jersey. Like, how the hell do you know who I am? And I had that feeling, and then I went and looked, and today the podcast is number 62 in India in the medicine category. So you're not the only one listening to it.
I think I've heard you say that before, that it's very big in India.
Yeah, but how do you find it, though? I
want to single-handedly take credit for your podcast. No, I feel like I'm your biggest listener. Like, that's what I mean.
No, listen, if you're out there telling people about it, I'm happy to give you credit. But, like, how does that initially... Listen... You're younger than me. And so the internet, I don't want to say that the internet is surprising to me. It's not. But I grew up through all kinds of shifts in technology. Like, I know that there were things that I used day to day in my life that if I put it in front of you, you'd be like, I don't know what this is. I can't even imagine what this does. Right. And so there's been these big leaps. I've kept up because of my job. So I to be perfectly honest, I might be on the bleeding edge of technology with everybody else. But it still somehow finds the 12-year-old inside of me. And he goes, I don't understand how a lady in India knows who you are. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, so how does that happen?
I think it was about last year, or maybe towards in 2022, end of 2022, where that's when I was coming to terms with the fact that, okay, I do have diabetes, my voice is back. Now I have to focus on, the other aspects of my health and, get that into order. And like any millennial would, I was on Instagram trying to find people who also have type 1. And I found somebody who said, oh, talked about your pro tips series. And I think podcasts were becoming really popular in India around that time, during COVID time, I think.
Yeah.
And so I started listening to your pro tip series. And so that's, and from there, I have not listened to many of your older episodes. I do listen like maybe 800 and upwards is when
Where you
I've
started. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when I started listening to your podcast, and I listen to it every day.
Oh.
It's what I listen to when I go to work, because I think when you upload is kind of coincides with when I'm going back from work. So
the time difference.
Difference. Yeah. So
I'm just gonna go get my kids after this and tell them, because they just laugh at me constantly. It's very funny to see like right now we're having this conversation. Like, I seriously might be announcing a cruise for listeners like next year, right? And I said that like in the house, and both of my kids were like, no one's going to do that with you. And I was like, I think they might. And they're both of them are like, you're out of your mind. And one of them started just laughing. And I was like, I wonder if I said to them, like, hey, I just met this person. By the way, she listens to my podcast in India every day. If they'd be like, no, she doesn't. But I mean, I'm aware, obviously, the podcast charts in 48 different countries, but it's limited by English speaking, like the ability to speak English. So can I ask you one quick question before I move on in your story from me?
Yeah.
We're researching right now, and we have some back end work happening with putting the podcast into different languages. But like the spoken word will be AI generated. Do you think that's listenable?
Not really. I think in India, I think English is fine. I don't think that's too much of a problem.
English isn't a barrier there.
No, it isn't.
Okay.
And I didn't want to tell you this, but I listen to your podcast at 2x speed.
I must be really fast at 2x speed, no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the last week, I've been listening to it in normal speed just so that, I can understand your voice modulation, all of that other stuff better. But I don't think English is... I did hear in some episode, I think with Jenny, you were talking about translating it in Hindi, and you were saying that Hindi is the largest speaking language in India. So I don't think English is too much of a barrier.
Okay.
If I'm being honest, I think English is fine.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you. Because it's a lot of work and effort behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Also, let me put this out to you. There will be a Cold Wind episode in the next couple of months with me and an Israeli doctor. And she talks faster than I do. So if you can listen to us speak at 2 times, I'll be very impressed. It's not often that I'm recording with somebody and I think, oh my God, slow down. But she was so fast. Oh my God. Okay. All right. So what did you mean by like existential questions? Like what's happened to you in the last couple of years?
I think I'm just going back to what I said, in terms of why did I make it out? Like, I went through such a difficult time, and if the DKA complications were really tough, and it was really hard to wrap my head around the fact that I'm here today, and that I get to live, and I didn't know why. I honestly thought if I weren't here today, it wouldn't make any difference.
Had you felt like that prior to this?
No, I didn't. No.
Why do you think you have that kind of like, because you're not suicidal, right?
No.
You don't want to be
I'm
dead.
not.
Like, right. Like, so something happened. You got close to the edge of death, and you are suddenly seeing the bigger picture about life and existence.
Yeah, I guess so. I just started really pondering about, so a lot of people in India, like I think all around the world, right? Many people died during that time. So I was just wondering, why am I the lucky one? Why am I here?
Has it given you a different focus? Do you attack things differently now? Do you appreciate things differently? Or is it just a nagging question in the back of your head?
No, I think it definitely made me take my health a lot more seriously and really wanting to do better and wanting to, just be there for my family like they were there for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it just gave me a lot of gratitude and a sense of appreciation for those around me.
Yeah.
Mostly. Yeah.
How do you see that materializing in your day-to-day life? Have you noticed changes about yourself? Is it more about how you think about things, or are you consciously doing things differently?
Yeah, I think I'm just a little bit more mindful, I guess, and I think a lot of that does go to the way I started really looking at my diabetes and started taking care of it, and I think like a year and a half ago, I really didn't care if I was sitting at 200, 250, or like,
Didn't
the
think
whole
anything
day or
of
the
it.
whole night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think anything of it. Yeah, but I think there are times now that that I do think about how difficult it was when I was diagnosed during 2021. And I really want to be more careful about those things
Mm-hmm.
and, really want to be on top of my health and of my diabetes. Yeah.
Was my pro tip series helpful for you to make changes? Or did you know
Yeah, definitely.
it wasn't like you knew what to do and you just weren't doing it? Or does it give you a motivation, or does it give you knowledge, or both?
It was knowledge primarily. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what to do.
Okay.
So until a year ago at my doctor's, so what I'm trying to say is that only a year ago in my doctor's office, they taught me what is a carb ratio. But I learned it much before that, thanks to your podcast and your pro tip series.
Wow.
I think there was one episode that you did with someone who talked about the Warsaw method of fat and protein impacting in blood sugars.
Yeah.
So that was like a game changer.
Oh,
because
especially
a lot of Indian food is very fat heavy.
Yeah.
It has a lot of fat. And a very common way when people go out to eat, a very common thing that you would see are buffets. And buffets would have like a lot of mixture of food from all over the world. Like you would have like Chinese food, like Indianized Chinese food, and Indian food and bread and all of that, and I think, and I would always see that fat spike like 4-5 hours after I've eaten my food, and I never understood why. And I was like, what am I doing? Because 2-3 hours after I've eaten, maybe I'm in range, but then the fourth hour I'm just like high, and it's not going down, and I had no idea.
Yeah. So no one told you that. When you hear people talk about the direction they get from doctors in America, is it the same thing that happened to you?
So I had like 3 doctors in 3 years, who were really not helping me at all. Like not helping me on the day-to-day stuff. Like, they would, like if I would go to them once in a couple of months, they would say, oh, okay, increase 2 units, of your breakfast insulin. So they would call it like breakfast insulin and lunch insulin, which was like so irritating now that I, look back on it. Nobody even taught me what a basal bolus regime is. Nobody taught me how does basal work. Nobody educated me on all of these things.
How about that?
I think I learned a lot of that from the podcast. And just a year ago, the doctor that I go to now, or the hospital that I go to now, that's where I, get a little bit more help from them. And they put me on the pump. And
are you getting more help from them because you know the right questions to ask now?
Questions, yeah. And I know what to look for. And sometimes when I ask these questions, I already know the answers to them. But but you just ask it because
I would give anything to be there in an Indian hospital when they're like, "How did you know that?" And you said, "There's a man named Scott on the internet." I would love to be there for that conversation. I just see the look on their face.
Yeah.
So moving forward, do you think, do you have goals that are out of the 7s with your A1C, and how do you think you get to that?
Yes, there are definitely, I don't want to be in the 7s. And I think that was another aspect why I wanted to come on the podcast, because all these so inspiring stories, like within 3 months, I came from an 8 to a 5.2, and I'm just sitting in the corner and crying. I'm like, oh my God, no, I can't do it. I think in 3 months I can move it by 0.2. So I've been so consistent. Like I go from a 7.8 to 7.6 to 7.4 to 7.2. That's how my graphs, have been in the last year. Yeah, so my goal is definitely to be, like I said, this year I really want to be in the 6s. Like that's my goal.
And that's doable, you think?
Yeah, I think that's doable.
What do you change to get to that? What do you have to do?
A lot of it has to be, more diligent with, pre-bolusing for my meals, and the bumping energy and the corrections. Like, if I'm sitting at 140, 150, I think I don't care about it during the day.
Yeah.
I think I need to be more diligent about that and kind of, ensure that I'm below 120 at least.
I see. What are your alarms set at on your Libre? Oh, it doesn't have alarms. It's the Libre
Yeah.
1.
So yeah, correct. So what you can do is there is this transmitter called the MM3 or something.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's like it's a made in China thing. So you can add that. So you can see,
Oh, are you
so
wearing it? Oh, I've seen that
so can you
before.
see this?
It's that little.
This is the Libre. Yeah.
Yep. And then that like
This is
little
the
box
Libre,
that goes
and
over
this is-
top.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
I've seen that before.
So that works like that sends data to my phone. So I don't have to keep scanning. With a Libre one, you have to scan it to your your device, right? With that transmitter, it sends data to your phone, and you use a third-party app that gives you those numbers. So I do have alarm set at 150. So post 150, I am like really mindful about it, and I try to push it down. But if I'm sitting between 130 to 150, I think I don't take too much action. I think I can be I can be more diligent with that.
Okay.
And secondly, I think the GLP medication has really helped as well.
I wonder what happens when you go to the 14 milligrams too. If that maybe does something as well.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to so I was also having insulin resistance and PCOD before I had COVID, right? Like so I lived like 26 years of my life as a normal human being, right? Like I didn't have not that I'm not normal now. What I meant was a functioning pancreas, right?
Yeah.
So I did have PCOD at that time, and I did have insulin resistance. So if I was not diagnosed in the way that I was, like I had COVID and decay and all of that stuff, I'm 100% sure that I would have been diagnosed as type 2 diabetic, and I would have been given metformin and all of that stuff, and I would have struggled for years and years.
Yeah.
So in a way, I'm really grateful that I did get diagnosed the way I did, because it clearly pushed me into the type 1 category. Then they did the GAD antibodies test, and then the C-peptide test and all of that. And it was like, it really indicated on the type 1 realm. Whereas if I hadn't had that diagnosed story, I would have definitely, clearly classified into type 2. I was always a little bit on the, not on the leaner side, like I was a little bit on the heavier side. I would carry more weight in my stomach. So anybody would look at me would, probably think of me as, she has, she would definitely have type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
So
India, I see here that type 1 in India is growing by 6.7% a year.
Yeah.
And actually type 2 grows by 4.4% in India. So it's outpacing type 2 in growth. That's really something. And then you have to go find all this information for yourself. And then you've got to self-pay your stuff. Are you paying for your pump out of your pocket too?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like maybe a year's worth in rent, maybe. That's like a one-time cost for the pump. And then the supplies are additional.
Yeah. So when you hear people in America complain about stuff, do you giggle a little bit when you're listening to the podcast?
No, I mean, I understand the
sure.
Like each system has their own struggles, I guess.
Yeah.
I do understand the perspective. But the thing is, in India, if you can pay cash, things are easy. Yeah, like your life is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have more disposable income.
Yeah, well, you're describing the entire world, but okay, yeah.
No. So what I'm trying to say is, from what I've heard, like a vial of insulin, just in clear monetary terms, is more cheaper to buy in India than it is to buy out of cash in the US.
I would imagine. Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that if you have that disposable income, and then it is more easier to do it in India than it would be to do in the US.
Sure. But you also just said, unless I misunderstood, is that the Ipsomed pump cost you the equivalent of a year's worth of rent?
Yeah.
Right. So, I'm just saying it's insane. Like it is. Yeah. And you'll have to pay that. Are there supplies that you'll have to keep buying?
Yeah, supplies are additional. Right? Yeah. So if you count the cost of the Libre sensor, my Ribelsis pill, and the pump supplies, so I'm paying I'm paying my rent, and I'm paying the equivalent of amount of my rent for my diabetes supplies as well.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's a lot of money.
Well, it is. And it's money that could be going towards your savings or your living situation or, any number of things, honestly.
Yep. Exactly.
Wow. Was this hard for your husband to accept?
Yeah, it was. So we were married a year before I got diabetes. So and we were dating for a couple of years before that. So it was definitely harder. And I think so. So I think a lot of it was more incremental. It was not like one day it was 3x the expense. Like initially we started with MDI, so that was a little manageable. Then we moved to the pump, and that was like a little extra, a little more money. So that's okay, we could manage. And then now I'm on Ribelsis, so that's like a little more money, and now we're able to manage that as well. So yeah.
Were you guys arranged, or did you meet on your own?
No, we met on a dating site actually. Nice. So yeah, and we've been together for I think 7 years now.
Good for you. Congratulations. That's lovely.
Yeah.
My gosh. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should have? Anything you wanted to bring up that I haven't gotten to?
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about the pump, and I don't have any looping system that I can use with the Ypsomed pump. If you have the Medtronic, you can do some. There are some ways to loop with using the Medtronic pump.
Yeah, there's an APS system that works with Medtronic and a couple of other things that you can do.
Yeah, I think there's something called a Riley link or something like that also works. If you have that, you are able to loop with that pump. But my doctor asked me to go for this, and I think I just went for it without thinking too much about it. So yeah, so I think using the pump is definitely it really helped. And and again, thanks to the episodes that you did on the pro tip series on how to manipulate basal, how to do extended boluses, and how to. I didn't even know like doing 2x. You could increase your basal by
right
100% for a period of time. All of those things were so helpful. Like nobody told me that. Nobody taught me that. So a lot of that was, self-learned, self-taught, I guess. I learned it from, the podcast. So, so a lot of people in India do, kind of argue about should they, use the pump or should they stick with the MDI because it's more affordable and it's, it's more easily available rather than the pump.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just the mode of delivery of insulin. I think it really, helps you understand how to adjust your insulin to the way that you eat food. So yeah, that was another thing that I wanted to talk about.
I was looking around a little bit here. The My Life Ypsomed pump does pair with the Dexcom G6 and the My Life Cam APS FX, which is an algorithm. Yeah. It also goes to Freestyle Libre 3. But
we don't get any of that in India.
Yeah. I mean, if you just have the one now, you could be years away from seeing any of the other generations of that stuff. The companies are going to have to stop making it so that you can so that they start giving it to you. That sucks.
Or maybe you can put in the word Dexcom, guys.
I'll call up. What I'll do is I'll call up Parliament and I'll call up a couple of other places and I'll get the whole thing worked out for you right here from New Jersey.
That would be great.
Somebody said something to me recently. They were like, "How come you don't just get this?" And I was like, "I think you overestimate my power. I can't make that happen." That's funny though. But oh geez. Well, I'm so because you would use an algorithm if you could, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Definitely 100%.
You're way ahead of the curve for India for understanding this stuff. Or do you know a lot of people?
No, so a lot of people do low carb just because it's easier to manage with the technology that you have, and it gives you more stability or more predictability in the way that your blood sugars look like. A lot of people who have diabetes do low carb in India, or that's what. So the minute you go to a doctor and they see that you have diabetes, the first thing that's going to come out of their mouth is low carb. Mm-hmm. They're just going to tell you to do low carb. And I was like really frustrated by that advice because I don't want to do low carb.
Yeah.
And that's also not addressing the problem, right? They're not teaching you how insulin works. They're not teaching you how to manage your diabetes. They're just telling you, stop eating the foods that you've eaten for the last 20 years and eat something completely different, and that's going to help with diabetes. But that's also not sustainable, for me personally, in the long term, right? So, but rather than spending time to educate people, they give out the easier advice, which is to do low carb.
I wonder why. I mean, there's got to be something I don't understand about the business side of this, but why, if I sold an insulin pump, would I not want to sell them in India? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of you, and there's a lot of you who are having like diabetes. Like, why would I wonder if does India stop American companies from doing business in India? Or I don't know, but like, it just seems like such an obvious thing.
Maybe it's the one-time cost that's associated with buying the pump, which is like really expensive.
Yeah.
I think that because it's not like, so insurance doesn't cover that kind of expense, right? Like, you have to pay in cash. So it's a lot of money, like the amount of money that I used to buy my, I can put a down payment for a house in a very good area.
Right.
Right.
Well, what I'm getting at is, why would the insulin pump company not say, look, let's sell them cheap there because we're going to sell so many of them, we'll be okay. Like, because there's two ways to value your product. It's either I'll make something expensive so that we make a bunch of money off of it, or I'll make it cheap and sell a lot of it. Like, those are basic business ideas. There's got to be a component there that I don't understand, because it just seems like an untapped market and a very, I'm generalizing here a little bit, but a very technologically adept population in India too. You know what I mean? Like, this is the kind of stuff you guys would love if you had it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the education aspect of it. Maybe there are too many people and not enough educators to, help spend the time. I don't know.
Feels like people don't want to make money to me. Like, that's
or maybe they should just send links of your podcast to everybody.
That would be simpler, right? Yeah.
That would just be easy.
Yeah.
Because the episodes are already there. All you have to do is press play.
Exactly. Can you imagine if I do a talk in India one day? That'd be nice.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It is, in the end, just having people's best interest at heart and giving them the information that they need to grow and make decisions with is really most of it. It really is. Yeah. Like, it's, I'm not saying anything. I don't say anything on the podcast that's that difficult to understand or that crazy. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm saying something and people are like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Did you hear what he said? I should bolus before my meal. It's, I know if you never heard it before, it sounds crazy, but once you're accustomed to it, this is not like brain surgery level stuff I'm saying here. Like, I'm just the only one saying it. You know what I mean?
Exactly,
like on a big platform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember very vividly the doctor, when they discharged me from the hospital after I was diagnosed, literally said, do not take your insulin 10 to 15 minutes before you eat. You have to take it 30 seconds before you eat.
Then you're going to have an A1C in the 8s.
And I did.
Yeah.
And I did have an A1C in the 8 for like 2.5 years. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? I'm doing exactly what I was told.
Yeah, no, it's obvious. And then you add the high carb, high fat. You could easily get an 8 or a 9 A1C and be trying with that information. And God, if you gave up, you could, it wouldn't be any trouble to have a 12, 14 A1C.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's true, and I knew that I didn't want to do low carb, and I still don't want to do it. I had lost so much weight just before I was diagnosed, sure. And I gained so much of it back after I was diagnosed. And I think in those, I was never scared of insulin either, because I would never see, I've heard stories of people telling how one unit, pushed them to a severe low and they were like drinking juices after juices, getting it back up. I've not seen any of that, dude. Like, I've not seen those kind of effects ever in the 3 years that I've been diagnosed. I had so much resistance already because maybe I had PCOD, I had insulin resistance, right? So that insulin didn't work like that. And I can tell you, after being on the GLP medication, I have seen one unit moving me like crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Listen, I swear to God, Arden's going to use 16,000 fewer units of insulin this year being on a GLP medication. 16,000 fewer units of insulin. It's just fantastic. But while we were sitting with her doctor an hour and a half ago, she's like, well, we definitely want her to be able to eat more frequently. And we want her to not, we want her to put a little more weight back on. Very important. Nutrition, et cetera. Like, nobody's saying no. But the next pause step was, but we got to find a way to keep this going. We can't give away what's happening with her diabetes here. Like, this is, so we're going to back her dose off. If that doesn't work, we'll start spreading the dose out. Like, we're going to try all kinds of different things. But she's getting such a benefit that I'm not saying we want her to be, underweight. Obviously, no. Just like, obviously, we want her weight to be good. We want her nutrition to be good, et cetera, and so on. And we're going to, make sure things are balanced for that. But at the same time, I mean, you saw her graph. We can't give that away. You know what I mean? Like, that's some sincere long-term health implications there. So we're looking for a balance. We're going to remove her dose again. Hell, anything. If Rybelsus is good for people, then let's go. I mean, you're going to see the injectables be more aggressive and maybe work better. If, overall weight loss, et cetera, everything else that comes with it. But my God, like, if Rybelsus is helping you like this, then every type 1 should be taking one of those pills every day to see what it does for them,
Yeah.
See if they can help.
Once when I was eating something and I took, like, I think 2 units extra, and I was like in the 40s or something. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening to me. Finally, that one extra unit that I took.
It's working.
Yeah, it's the same thing that those other people on the podcast talk about.
Yeah, well, it's not doable. Like, people all the time think that that's for someone else. But, listen, there's going to be situations where people can't do everything that somebody else does. But for the most part, using insulin correctly, it does what it does what I say, generally speaking. And for a lot of people who GLPs work for, they're going to see these kind of benefits. It's just what's going to happen. You're going to look back in a couple of years and look at all these people who are right now going, oh, you're type 1, you can't take a GLP. And like, wait till you see like how it changes. So big time stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to say goodbye. I'm running out of time. Also, I'm choking to death. I want to thank you very much for doing this. This was absolutely terrific. You were fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Well, it was my pleasure.
I had a great time.
Oh, good. I'm glad. What time is it there, by the way?
It's 10:50 at night.
Oh, well, also you got to go to bed. But hold on 1 second for me. Don't go away. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
This episode of the Juicebox Podcast was sponsored by US Med. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. Get started today with US Med. Links in the show notes, links at juiceboxpodcast.com. A huge thank you to one of today's sponsors, Gvoke Glucagon. Find out more about Gvoke HypoPen at gvokeGlucagon.com/juicebox. You spell that GVOKEGLUCAGON.com/juicebox. US Med sponsored this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Check them out at usmed.com/juicebox or by calling 888-721-1514. Get your free benefits check and get started today with US Med. The Diabetes Variable series from the Juicebox Podcast goes over all the little things that affect your diabetes that you might not think about. From travel and exercise to hydration and even trampolines. Juiceboxpodcast.com. Go up in the menu and click on Diabetes Variables. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Do me a favor. If you need or want anything that is sold by one of the sponsors, please use my links. When you do that, you are supporting the production of this podcast, helping to keep it free and plentiful, and you're just helping me out. I pay my electric bill with this money. I keep the podcast going. I'm not saying buy something you don't want, but I mean, if you're getting an Omnipod, then go to my link. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. WrongWayRecording.com.